In this video, we're going to be making a Flask web application, and we're also going to be using something called Jinja, which helps carry variables over to display to the viewer. So Flask is serverless. It lets you view a website on your computer as if it was a web application connecting to a server, and it also works really well with SQLite. And in today's example, we will be creating a login page that also allows a user to register for the login page. All right, let's get started. First, on the desktop, make a new folder. Right-click, New Folder, and name it Web App. All right, all lowercase. And next, open the Web App folder. Double-click on it. All right, you can minimize this. And now open Visual Studio Code. And in Visual Studio Code, you want to File, Open Folder, and open Web App in your desktop. And then select Folder. Alright, so now that we have Web App opened in the Explorer, click Yes, I trust the authors, and start a new file. This is going to be a Python file, and the name of this Python file is very important. We're going to call this Python file app.py. So I'm not sure. Here we go. So now that it opened, if it doesn't open, just try again like I did and Control S, save it to the web app folder, which it was already open, but I'm just opening it again in the desktop, and save it as app.py. Press save. Okay, great. Now we can click later to the update here, and in app.py we're going to type a couple things that we will need. We learned about modules. We need to import some components from the module Flask. From Flask import, and we're going to learn about classes, but we will import the class Flask, which is uppercase, along with render template. And render template is a function that calls a certain HTML page to the server website. So if you take in web design, you'll recognize HTML. Request is an object that contains all the data sent from the client or the user to the server. Flash, which is a function that records a message and sends it only to the next request. So it's kind of like the game Telephone, if you've ever played that, where there's something that one person says on the one end of the line, and the message travels across. And hopefully it doesn't change in the process. Redirect, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's redirect function. URL4, which generates a URL. Okay. The session object creates a session. And now we just need to import SQLite 3 and get started with our Flask skeleton. So import SQLite 3. Right. And now here's how we start a Flask web application. And the reason why we need SQLite 3, by the way, is to store and retrieve user credential data. So when a user signs up, their data is going to be stored via SQLite 3, and when they log in, the data is going to be retrieved. Username, password, all that sort of data is going to be retrieved when they log in. Right? So app equals Flask, parentheses, underscore, underscore, okay, so 2 underscores, and then name, and then underscore, underscore, As we can see, Visual Studio Code knows what we want to do, right? And this is called the self-initialization method when we use double underscores, but we will learn about that more in programming too. This is just the framework that we need to know right now to get started. And this is actually a built-in variable in Python, underscore underscore name underscore underscore. And so this line 4, creates a Flask application object in the current Python file. Right. So the next thing we need is called a decorator, @app.route, and we put parentheses, single quote, slash, single quote, parentheses. So this is what's known as the decorator, which will modify the function that immediately follows. So app is a Flask application object, and root, open argument, is one of the methods of the Flask class. Okay, so we see the /, and in routing that's very common, because when we are routing web pages, we see /s all the time. So now we need to make a function called index, and we open argument here. And index will be routed to the user. So if you've taken web design, you know that index is the main page of any website, if you're currently taking it. But we will be using a specific template. So when we put a colon and put enter, it automatically indents. And so we can return render template and put parentheses, single quotes, index.html. Okay, and that specific template we will get from this next line. If space underscore underscore name underscore underscore 2 equal signs, which we know is Boolean the same as. So if underscore underscore name underscore underscore is the same as space single quote underscore underscore main underscore underscore and single quote and then a colon. Okay. And then the purpose of that line is to run the file, if the file is being run by itself, not imported. And that's for security. So app.py is being run inside of this file. It's not being run by another file as a module or anything like that. So if name is main, yes, the file is being run from app.py, colon, and we make a new line. App.run, debug equals true. So if the file is being run, then run by itself. Great. Control S that. And next we want to create index.html. So in Visual Studio Code, let's create a new file. So file, new text file. Control S, save this as index.html, but don't save it yet. We're not going to save it inside of web app. Instead, we'll click the new folder button and call this folder templates. So that's templates, plural. And now double click on this folder. And so now you are inside of templates, which is inside of web app. So save index.html inside of templates, which is inside of web app. Press save. Okay, so we're going to start with our HTML skeleton. And if you're in web design or if you've taken it, you know that we have sandwich-like qualities to this language. We have HTML, which is the bread on top and bottom, head, which is like the lettuce inside, and we have the title, which is like our first tomato. Let's call it web app. right? And that closes the head. And now our body, which is like the meat, right? And we're going to create a form. And the action on this form, and when we put equals, it might give you double quotes. If not, put double quotes. /login is our action for this form. The method is post. So if you know PHP, you know that there are two methods that are primary. There's get, which passes data through the address bar, and there's post, which processes data through preprocessor instead. And so we're not using PHP, but the method is going to be post, which is similar to PHP. And we'll have autocomplete off, so it doesn't automatically fill in any of your sensitive data. And now inside of this form, we'll create a header, third level header, called login SQLite. That's our title. Login SQLite. And so we'll have three labels. The first label will say username, and the second label will say password. Oops. And the third label, actually, let's just have two labels, username and password. And so underneath this label, the input type is text, username is text. So it's not sensitive text, it's just text. The name equals name. And we'll make this required by putting required at the end of that tag. Right, so when the user types, letters will show on the screen. Copy line 11 and paste it into a new line, line 15. But for the type, change it to password, and the name of this field will be password for organization purposes for Flask. Okay. So now SQLite will know that that's the password, and we need another input type, submit. And the value of submit will be login. And one final link, which will say register. So this is where we start to use Jinja. This link, we put two left squiggly brackets. So to make a squiggly bracket, you hold shift and you tap on the, or click on the left square bracket. So shift left square bracket, the key right to the right of P, will make a squiggly bracket. So two squiggly brackets, URL 4, which, as you will remember, it's one of the functions we imported in app.py, which generates a URL. And so input 4, put open argument there, but put single quotes, and then register. Right? And you close the parenthesis closed, the two squiggly brackets closed, and we will also close the double quotes and close the A tag there. In between the open A and close A, we put register. Right? And so we closed form, closed body, closed HTML, our complete sandwich. So Control S, save that. Now go back to app.py. Underneath the return render template line, we need to make some new unnested lines. Okay, so don't nest it inside of index. We're finished with index for now. And we'll create a decorator. At app.route, parentheses, single quote, / register, end the single quote, then put a comma. Methods, plural, equals, and now we put a left square bracket, a single quote, get, and single quote, comma, space, single quote, post, and single quote. And it ended the square bracket and the parenthesis as well. Make a new unnested line again. And this time we're making a function called register. So when the user registers, it'll take them to the register page. When they want to register, they click register. It returns a render template. So after that colon there, make a new line and it will indent. Return space render underscore template. And inside of this argument that you created with a left parenthesis, put a single quote, and it should put 2 single quotes there, and inside register.html. Okay, Control S and save this. Now, you're going to want to copy the contents of index.html. So Control C on all of that. And you can also do Control A to select all and then Control C, either way. And now create a new file. So I'm going to go File, New Text File, Control S, register.html, and save it in, you guessed it, the templates folder nested inside of web app. Press save, paste the contents with Control V, and save with Control S. Delete everything inside of body. Now create a new form. Form with the method post. And the action / register. Okay, and this time, let's make an H2, make it a bit bigger. Call it registration. All right, for registration, for label, name. And now, name is text. We don't need to make it sensitive by putting dots like we do for password. So we'll do type is text, just normal text. The name for SQLite purposes is name, and that's required. So we'll close that input. Now make a new label called address. And for address, they need a little bit more space to type, the user does. So we'll put text area, and the name for this will be address, and that's required. And we don't have to put a type. Text area will make it bigger, so that's fine. Let's make a label called phone. And for this, we'll do text again. A phone number is not too long, so put type as text, name as phone, and this will be required as well. So that there are no null entries, let's just make these required. And another label for email. Oops. And the input type is submit. And the value is register. Close that. And the form closed, the body closed, and HTML closed. So Control S to save that. And now go back to app.py. Right in the middle of the register function, we need to type the following unnested. So inside this register function, right after the colon, make a return mark, and we need a conditional statement. If the request dot method is the same as post, if the request method is post, colon, and now it indents further when we did the colon and we put try, but we want a colon, but we want to delete that. Except colon, and it's going to try to indent again, just delete the indent, and finally. Okay, so if the request.method is post, try, except, and finally. Alright. Now, you can Control S and save that. Underneath app equals Flask name. Alright, make a few new lines. And I actually like to create enough lines so that there's enough space so that these next 3 lines we're going to create are by themselves. And you'll recognize this possibly from the SQLite lesson. We have a couple ways, methods to connect to databases and execute SQL commands. Okay, so SQLite commands are similar to SQL commands, and so this will look familiar if you've studied SQL. Con equals SQLite3 dot connect, parentheses, and we do double quotes here, and let's call it database.db, con.execute. And now we need to put parentheses and double quotes, and so this is the grammatically incorrect statement if you remember from that video. Create table if not exists. Space. Customer. Put another set of parentheses here. And now this all looks like string, but remember that it's going to come out as SQL command and interact with SQLite. PID space integer space primary space key comma name space text comma address space text, and we can word wrap finally. View word wrap. Okay. Address space text comma phone space integer, because a phone number is an integer, comma email space text. Right? And we won't validate this time email, but just know that that is an option. And PID, by the way, at the beginning here means process ID. Okay. Now let's make a new line, con.close, open argument. Save using Control S. Now let's go back to register.html. All the labels in register.html we need to utilize in our app.py. So go back to app.py. Now underneath the try line, make a return mark, and now type name equals request.form square brackets single quotes name. Let's copy this 3 more times. So Control C line 19. Oops. If you're Control C'ing and entering, maybe it's best to just highlight that part. Okay, paste, enter, paste, using Control V and the enter. Instead of name, for line 20, put address equals request.form, put address and the parameter there. Put phone, line 21, and same here, phone. Oops. Line 22, put email, request form, put email here. Right, and now we're going to do something different for line 23. Do con equals SQLite 3.connect database.db. Looks very familiar to line 6 now. cur equals con.cursor, which is really what the database is selected to. cur.execute, and we put some parentheses here. Double quote, insert space into space customer parentheses. Okay, so we know we have different tables inside of our database, and so we need to insert some data here. Name, comma, address, comma, phone, comma, email. The values that we used for register and that we used in lines 19 through 22. Right, close that parenthesis, and then values, new set of parentheses. Question mark, comma, question mark, comma, question mark, comma, question mark. And what this does right now is this sets some placeholders for values. We don't know what those values are yet, but when the user types them, they will go right here. So that's what these question marks are for. Okay, end the double quote, and then comma, new set of parentheses. In these purple parentheses here, put name, comma, address, comma, phone, comma, email. And those all turn blue because we have to find them in lines 19 through 22. Okay, make a new line. Con.commit. Open argument. Flash. And we use Flash to flash a message, and that message is record added successfully. And the double quote, put a comma, space, new double quote, success. All right. Now, in the except, nest this line. Flash error in insert operation. Okay. So if the request method is post, try all this, except flash error in insert operation. That'll be the exception. Otherwise, finally, after you've tried all this and it was successful or there's an error, return redirect parenthesis URL 4 parenthesis double quote index. And we can con.close, put 4 spaces there, and Control S to save. Alright, now we are in app.py, and underneath the app equals Flask name, we'll put a secret key. A secret key is needed for this authentication method we are using, and so app.secret underscore key equals double quote 1, 2, 3. So Control S to save. Now go back to index.html, and underneath the h3 header, type the following lines. Okay. Left squiggly bracket, %, space, with space, messages, space equals space, get underscore flashed underscore messages, left parenthesis, with underscore categories equals true, close right parenthesis, space %, and that ends that first Jinja line. And we have a couple more Jinja lines to go, so left squiggly bracket, parentheses, space, if, space, messages, space, parenthesis, close squiggly bracket. Our second Jinja line. Third Jinja line, left squiggly bracket, parentheses, that was left squiggly bracket, percent sign. These are percent signs here. Space for space category, comma, message space in space messages, space, percent sign, close squiggly bracket. Now we are going to make a div, and you'll know that that's like a span in HTML, except it can contain more. Okay, so two left squiggly Jinja for message, two right squiggly. After the close div, another Jinja line, end 4, and as we always do, percent sign close squiggly, open squiggly percent sign, space end if, space close squiggly close percent sign, close percent sign close squiggly, and then open squiggly open percent sign end with, close percent sign close squiggly. Right, and Control S to save. Now go back to app.py and click the Run and Debug button, which is this button right here. And then click Run and Debug, click Flask, and let's take a look at the terminal. No module named Flask. So here's what we have to do. We have to follow a couple steps, and these steps will be in the terminal. So pip3 space install space minus sign upgrade space pip, and enter. And if that doesn't work, type pip space install space minus sign upgrade space pip. Alright. And so that is not working here. Pip3 space install. Pip install. Alright. So pi space -3 install. Alright, so since all of that is not working, I'll just clear this. But to try pip3 install -sign upgrade space pip if you need to. Otherwise, pip3 space install space flask. Let me take a look at pip install not working. Windows 10. Okay. Python -v. Python was not found. Run without arguments to install from the Microsoft Store. Okay. So Python space get -pip.py. No, pip space -sign version. Okay. Let's open the command prompt. Open the command prompt. Type Python -v. Just Python then. We need to install it from the Microsoft Store, it looks like. And we don't want Python 3.11 though. We want Python 3.10. Okay, so this is free. So let's get this. And this is different for many operating systems. Once you get into Flask and web applications, it's going to vary across the board. But this should work just fine. Alright. Now Python -v. Okay, so this is working now. So now let's try pip 3 space install space -sign upgrade pip. Now it's working. And now pip 3 install Flask. Okay, and now what we need to do is we need to create a virtual environment. So pi space -3 space -m space vnv space vnv. And then click yes to do you want a virtual environment workspace. Okay, and now that it prompted us to continue, we do vnv /scripts with a capital S /activate. Enter. Okay, running scripts is disabled on this system. So in order to fix that, scripts disabled. Okay. I'm just figuring out what to do in this situation. So if scripts are disabled, loading up these instructions. Okay. Open up Windows PowerShell. Type get with a capital G -- execution policy and enter. Okay. Now we see the policy for the current PowerShell session. So we can type get -- execution policy space -list. It'll list all of the scopes. So we want to change the policy for the scope we want, which is current user. So for current user, we want set -execution policy, space -sign scope, space current user, space -sign execution policy, space remote signed, and there's a lot of camel casing here. And press enter. Okay, and since that isn't working, let's actually delete remote signed and put unrestricted. Enter. Okay. Type A and enter. Alright, and that was a capital A. So now, let's try again. venv /scripts /activate. Enter. And now we finally have what we want, which is the virtual environment. Right, now that we have this, type pip space install space Flask, but no pip3 this time, just regular pip. Okay, and pip is a method by which Python installs modules, and so we now say set space Flask underscore app space equals space app.py. Press enter. Okay. That's not working, but that's okay. Let's click Run and Debug. And now it works. So now running on the server, let's highlight the server and Control-C. Or if that doesn't work, actually, we can hover over and then click Follow Link as well. Or type 127.0.0.1:5000. Okay. Now this is great. It's running. That's awesome. If access is denied, try incognito. Alright, and now you should see a register button, not just a login button. So when you click on register, it goes to the /register route. Alright. Okay, let's keep going. So let's minimize this, and let's close this. Control-C to stop the process here. And now we can go back to app.py. We're right here. And underneath the render template index.html. Let's find that. Render template index.html. Here we go. This one. Under this, type the following line, not nested. Okay, so the very beginning, decorator app.route, parentheses, single quote, /login, and single quote, comma, space. We have some methods. Methods equals square bracket, double quote, get, and double quote, comma, space, double quote, post, end double quote. It ends the square bracket, ends the parenthesis. Now underneath that, we want to create a function called login. So just like we created a register function, now we're creating a login function. And we also want a conditional statement. And let's copy this, right? Beginning of the if in line 22 to the end of the square bracket in line 24. Paste it in the indent of line 18. Okay, and now make a new line and copy the beginning of name in line 20 to the end of the square bracket there in line 21. So the name, the request form is name, but now password of the request form is password. Con equals SQLite, and let's see if we can connect anything, copy anything rather. Con equals SQLite 3 connect database DB. Let's copy line 32 now. Paste it in line 22. Now make a new line, con.row_factory equals SQLite3.row with a capital R. Okay, and we know class when we see one. Now cur equals con.cursor and close. And what's nice is that Visual Studio Code marks green classes, so that's really nice. We'll get to classes though. I know we haven't learned it yet. We'll get to it next week. Okay, and now let's isolate this line. cur.execute, parentheses, double quotes, select, space, wildcard, space, from, space, customer. That means select any that is needed to be retrieved from the table customer where the name equals what the user typed and email equals what the user typed, which we're putting right now, we're putting question marks, but in reality what the user types will be there. And the double quote, put a comma and put parentheses, name, comma, password as the parameters. Okay. And now put another return mark. I'll put 2. Data equals cur.fetch1, open argument. Right? And now if space data colon session left square bracket double quote name double quote right square bracket equals data left square bracket double quote name double quote right square bracket. Copy that text and make a new line and paste, and change name in the second line to email and data, the email name parameter change to email. And now return space redirect, left parenthesis left double quote customer. Return, and now else. You might need to press delete if it didn't unindent, but for me it unindented automatically. And now when you put a colon, it indents automatically when you press enter. Flash, left parenthesis, left double quotes, username and password incorrect. Okay, and so if the data matches return redirect customer, else it must be incorrect. Put a new line, but unindent and unindent again. And now return space redirect parenthesis URL for parenthesis double quote index. Alright, and now return and unindented correctly. So we put decorator app dot route parentheses single quote / customer and the single quote comma methods equals double quote. I want to put get double quotes and then a comma, and then no space needed, double quote post. Okay, and then actually I forgot one thing. After the methods equals, put a left square bracket and then close that as a right square bracket after the double quote ends in post. Right, make a new line and a new function called customer, open argument, quote, colon, and then enter. Return space render underscore template, parentheses, double quotes, customer.html. Control S to save. Right, now we need a customer.html. So let's go to the Explorer. Let's go to index.html, and once again, Control A, Control C, and now let's go to File, New Text File. Control S, save as customer.html inside, once again, templates, and save. And now Control V to paste, and Control S to save. Delete everything inside of body, once again. And now let's make an H2 called customer page. This is customer.html. It's the customer page once they have been logged in. We want to welcome the customers. Let's make an H3 welcome colon. Let's use Jinja to call the session name. Welcome. Okay. We call names through Flask classes, not through PHP. Notice how there's no $signs, right? Instead, we're using Flask classes to call the names. Let's make a new horizontal line, which we do by HR. And now a new link, which we do ahref in HTML. But now we are going to use Jinja and put 2 left squiggly brackets, URL 4, parentheses, single quote, log out. Right? Close the single quote, close the parenthesis, close Jinja, which is the 2 squiggly brackets, close the double quote, and now we want to even close the tag and just say log out, and it closed the A for us. Control S. Now it's saved. All right. Now in app.py, underneath the return template register, let's look for that. That's return template customer. Here, return template register. Type the following unnested. So at the very beginning, at app.route logout /logout. Okay, at app.route parentheses single quote /logout. Now let's make a new function called logout, open argument colon, and now when we enter it returned for us, it indented for us. So let's clear the session by session.clear open argument and return space redirect. When you log out, you want your session to be clear so nobody else can log in as you, and you also want to redirect to like a home page, like similar to how you log out of your bank or you log out of your email. You're redirected to a different page. URL underscore 4 index. Let's take them back home. There's no place like home. There's no place like index. Control S. Now let's go to our run and debug, and we're still in the virtual environment, so click run and debug. This doesn't work, so Control C in the terminal and make a new line under line 35. Let's try finally. Nested under if, the same nest as try. And Control S and run and debug. Okay. Let's indent the return there and run and debug. Okay. And now let's try the development server. So follow that link. Oh, now it works. Now go back to register.html. And underneath the register button, nested as the same as the input tag, we're going to make a new line and new link. A equals href, double quote, squiggly, squiggly, left squiggly, that is. URL underscore 4, left parentheses, single quote, index, right arrow, right arrow, right arrow, right arrow, right arrow. All right. And close that tag and back to home. This link is going to be called. Go to app.py and run and debug one last time. Hover over 127 and now follow link. Okay. And now let's give it a try. Let's just say anything we want here and it should fail. Yep, username and password incorrect. Now let's press register. Let's put name, address, phone. Oops. Something was off with the email. What was off? Input type is submit. We didn't put an input for the email. That was a mistake. Input type equals text, name equals email. Name, so text here, name equals email. Required. Okay. Let's save that. And now let's go back to app.py. Click on the terminal, black space here, and then click Control C. And now click on Run and Debug, and click Run and Debug. And now hover over 127 and click Follow Link. Alright, now let's type anything we want and anything we want, and it should fail, and it fails. And now we click Register, and now we put name, address, 12345678890, and email, and press Register. Right? So the username is name, and the password is email in this case. And let's click Login. This has to be unindented. Lines 39, 40, and then for 41, unindent that halfway. Okay. Finally. Yeah, the finally is causing an issue here. Maybe this is just indented once. Okay. Accept. Let's run and debug. Right. Alright, well, now we get to the welcome screen, and when we say name and email, which is nice, and we get rejected when we do anything else. And let's see name 2, address 2, 23456788901, and email 2, and register. Record added successfully. We see the flash there, and so name 2, email 2. Yeah, that works. And so now when we try to get in, we just don't see the flash. So a very possible reason why this doesn't happen, that the message doesn't flash when it's incorrect, is because this was built on an older version of Python, but we still got the fundamental goals of this project to work. So your homework assignment will be to create a login page using fields that make sense for your project.